In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Now a man was ill, Lazarus, from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to him, saying, "Master, the one you love is ill." When Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him." He said this, and then told them, "Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him." So the disciples said to him, "Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved." But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them clearly, "Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him." So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go to die with him." Then Jesus arrived. He found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise." Mary said to him, "I know that he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, "The teacher is here and is asking for you." As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him, for Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house, comforting her, saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Sir, come and see." And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?" So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench, for he has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus, raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd here, I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands. His face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord. So that was Matthew chapter 11, verses 1 to 45. I don't know if I wrote the right number on there again, if I put 9 again. I keep going to chapter 9. I'm not sure why. I keep going back there. So Jesus, in today's gospel, we find him at the beginning across the Jordan where John was baptizing. It doesn't say that in here, but it does say it in the previous chapter, that's where he was, which, from Bethany is down the hills, the Judean hills, past Jericho and across the Jordan over there. And it's interesting that he's not very far away, really, but he waits. He hears that he is sick, and because he loves them, he waits. What is more important, physical healing or spiritual healing? Because he loves them, he waits. This is not to end in death, but is for glory. But is for glory, so that my glory may be seen. So he waits another 2 days. Jesus in another place says that he is the light. Now, in today's gospel, we see that he is that you should walk with him, or you will stumble. While it's daylight, you should walk. Well, where is it daylight? Well, it's daylight where Jesus is. I was pointing this out to somebody. I don't know if you can see this behind me, but the icon that's here, like many images of Christ, like a lot of nativity images of Christ, the light in this picture, the way that the light comes, it comes from Jesus in this icon. It doesn't come from somewhere else. It doesn't come from the sun. It comes from Jesus. So Jesus is the light in this gospel and in the picture. So another thing that's interesting is that Jesus knows what's going on. It's clear that he knows what's going on. He asks a few questions, but his questions are not to clarify for himself. He knows what's going on. How do we know that? Well, they send someone to him to let him know that he's sick. But after 2 days, he says, "Okay, now we should go. Our brother is asleep." And of course, they're confused about that. It's the sleep of death. But our brother is asleep. And then he has to be more clear. He died. But nobody told him that. There's no indication that Martha and Mary sent another person down to him to let him know that he died. And they didn't have cell phones. I don't know if you knew that, but they didn't. Thomas, called Didymus, in other versions of this gospel. So, like in the Spanish, it says Thomas, called gemelo, twin. Thomas, who is called twin. So Didymus means twin. It's the Greek version. So Thomas, who was called Didymus, is the same as, you might have had a translation once upon a time that said Thomas, called twin. So somehow he was a twin of somebody. I don't know who. But Thomas is the one who thinks very rationally. He thinks like most of us do, right? Well, they were just going to stone us. Okay, so one of the disciples says, they were just going to stone us, and you want to go back? And Thomas is the one who says, okay, let's go die with him. It's one of those lines where you go, oh, yeah, this guy, there's something about this guy that's to love and, to kind of say, relax, he's got this. So the people, the other thing that's part of this story is the people are sitting with Mary and Martha. There are people sitting in their house because that's what the Jews do when somebody dies. They sit around. They sit with them. They sit shiva and they pray with them, and they sit and they're with them in their grief. It's not important what they said. What's important is that they were with her. And they were with them. And so when one of them gets up to leave, what do? They get up and they go with her, because being with her is the most important thing. We know, of course, that after 3 days, you're dead. After 3 days, you're definitely dead. And so we find Jesus showing up on the fourth day, and we know that Lazarus is dead. Nothing else is going to happen. He is dead. In fact, he's going to start to stink, right? And it's, of course, Martha is the one who pays attention to those sorts of things, because she's always, in the other story, she's the one who takes care of the details, right? Mary is extravagant with the oil. Mary is extravagant with her attention towards Jesus. But Martha is always busied about this and that, and the things that need to be taken care of. You can see that they would be a nice compliment. We don't know really what Lazarus did. I mean, other than die. Get sick. It doesn't say that so much. But Jesus loves Lazarus too. So he must have done something. I don't know. So we have an I am statement. And I don't know if you noticed during the homily, I talked about an I am statement. I talked about I am the living water. But it's interesting, Ratzinger, in his book, Jesus of Nazareth, actually, at the time he wrote the book, he wasn't Cardinal Ratzinger anymore. He was Pope Benedict, and now he's Pope Benedict Emeritus. But in his book, Jesus, he writes about the I am statements. We have it in our library. And in the I am statements, he says, and it's not by mistake that there are 7 of them. Did you know there are 7 of them? Yeah, there are 7 of them. And guess what? Guess what isn't one of them? I am the living water. And I thought to myself, well, that's wrong. The Pope was wrong, right? I'm the one who should tell the Pope he's wrong. And actually, when the Holy Father said that, he was talking about. He was saying there's a scholar who's got these all numbered out. But he says, if you'll notice, in the story of the Samaritan woman, he doesn't say, I am the living water. He says, I will give living water. I will give living water. That's an interesting thing. So I went back and I looked at it. Sure enough, it doesn't say that. Interesting. Jesus says he's the resurrection and the life. He's the resurrection and the life. Why is it important that we believe in the resurrection and that Jesus is the resurrection? Why is that important to us? Well, St. Thomas Aquinas says, I'm going to say that later. Let's keep going in the story. I'll come back to that. Jesus says to them, do you believe? And he says to Martha and to Mary, do you believe That I can raise him from the dead, or that your brother will rise, actually. Do you believe that your brother will rise from the dead? And they give the good, pious answer. It's like our students when they're studying the catechism, right? What do they say when you ask them a question? Jesus! Jesus! I know it's Jesus. Jesus is the right answer. It's got to be the right answer around here somewhere, right? Well, it kind of is. But actually, they get it right and they get it wrong. Do you believe? Yes, I believe. That's right. That he will rise on the last day. Well, that's true. But I'm here now, and so something different is going to happen. He's going to rise now. And the other thing is, both of the sisters, when they encounter Jesus, they say, if you had been here, our brother would not have died. And there's kind of a tacit understanding that they would be right about that. Certainly, when they ask the question, when the crowd, when the Pharisees, when the Jews, and by the way, the Jews in this story, we're in John's Gospel. So when it refers to the Jews, remember, Jesus is a Jew. Peter, James, John, Thomas, Lazarus, Mary, Martha, they're all Jews. So when the Jews is being used here, it's being used about those from Jerusalem who are opposed to him. Okay? It's not a slight on a religion. It is rather a recognition that there are those in authority who are opposed to Jesus. Okay? Let's see. So, do you believe? Yes, I believe. There's going to be a stench. Do you believe? Yes, I believe. On the last day, I am the resurrection. I am the resurrection. And he's deeply troubled. He's deeply troubled. Why is he deeply troubled? Well, one of the reasons that he's deeply troubled is because he's facing a big battle right now. He's facing a battle that he's going to face on the inside in a short time. Right? So now he's facing from the outside of the tomb the battle. His final battle on earth is with death, and he will overcome it. He's been battling Satan. We've seen this, especially in our study of Mark's gospel last year. We saw it a lot. Kingdom of Satan versus the kingdom of God, the kingdom of evil, the kingdom of this world. But here, he's facing his final enemy, death. And so why is he troubled? Why is he moved? Well, that's one part of it. The other thing is the sort of the lack of faith that he sees in some people, and the need to deepen that faith. It says that he's disturbed. It says that he's perturbed. Let's see, I better quit pretty soon. Oh, I got lots of time. It says that he's deeply perturbed. Oh, now here's where I was going to get to that other part. The question that the Jews ask is, could the man who healed somebody born blind from birth, could he not have kept the man from dying, kept Lazarus from dying? And the way that they ask the question, you expect them, or they expect you, to say, well, yeah, of course he could have. Of course he could have. Now, they don't go further and ask why, but Jesus has already answered that question at the beginning of this time. He's already said this to his disciples when he was down by the Jordan River. Oh, by the way, the description of the tomb and the stone matched the description of Jesus. If you believe, you will see. So, seeing is believing, we often say. But oftentimes, if we don't believe, we don't see. So we never see the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus unless we believe. Unless we believe. And so Jesus is full of confidence. He knows that something's going to happen. He knows what's been going on. He says to his heavenly Father, he speaks to the Father in heaven, and he says, thank you for hearing me. Now I know that you always hear me. But I say this so that they know that you always hear me. That I'm not just talking to myself, that there's a first person of the Trinity. That they might not only know that you listen, but that you sent me. So the Father is giving witness to the Son in this. The Father is giving witness to the Son. The hour is coming when those who hear my voice will come out. That was in the 5th chapter of the Gospel. What does Lazarus do? Lazarus, come out! He hears and believes. And so he comes out. And now, remember that this is not the same as the resurrection of Jesus. In the resurrection of Jesus, this is Jesus raising him from the dead, so he's going to die again. The other thing that's interesting is you never hear about Jesus being untied. So the bonds that tied Jesus up and the face covering that was put over his face, it doesn't say that somebody had to untie them or that the angels cut them or something like this. It does say that the napkin ends up in a different place, like he sat up and took it off, kind of thing. That's what Jesus does, but not Lazarus. Not Lazarus. This isn't the same kind of resurrection. So Lazarus comes out of the tomb all bound up, right? He's got the thing over his face. It's a wonder he didn't hurt himself stumbling out of the tomb. Especially if you ever get to go and visit that tomb, it's a little hard to climb out of and into. It's not a particularly easy cave, and so this is something about that. And then what happens? Many Jews come to believe. Let me see. How does it say that? Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. Now we know that not all of them did. We know that even some who believed in him turn away, right? Even some who begin to believe in him don't follow through. What about you and me? Are we bound by this world, by the deathly things of this world? Are we bound by the wrappings of death, by the trappings of this world? Do we begin to believe in him and not follow through, or do we believe in him all the way through until we witness the resurrection? Those could be some good reflections. Okay, now I was going to tell you what St. Thomas Aquinas says about why the resurrection is so important. Why is it important that we believe in the resurrection? So, and this is the resurrection is important because it never happened before, and it didn't happen since. There's only one Jesus, and there's only one resurrection. Now, have people been raised from the dead? Yes. Have people been assumed into heaven? Yes. But they're not God. Jesus is. And so the resurrection is really important. And it's really important. St. Thomas Aquinas wasn't facing some of our 20th century theologians. There was a 20th century theologian who said, yeah, we got to demythologize all the scriptures. We got to take these apart. We got to strip away all the pious nonsense and get down to the nitty-gritty. And what in the end is the nitty-gritty? Well, it ends up being something like, well, all of these stories are important because I believe them. And Jesus is important because if I believe him, it changes me. But that's not quite the same as, the stone being rolled away, the earth being shattered, the gates of hell being shattered by Jesus who gets, sucked into the mouth of death, right? and like Superman or Tarzan in the mouth of the crocodile, busting his way out, right? This image of, well, faith is important because it makes me feel good, is much different from that the resurrection really happened. And so it's important for us to believe in the resurrection. St. Thomas Aquinas says, gives 4 reasons why it's important for us to believe in the resurrection, to believe that Jesus is the resurrection. First of all, because it removes our sadness at death. If I believe in the resurrection, then death has no sting. If I believe in the resurrection, not just of Jesus, because that is the other thing. We believe that one man rose from the dead. But we also believe that he promised that all of us would rise from the dead. He said that too. And so it removes, death on a human level is still a sad thing, right? We miss people. We miss them when they go to the store. Well, some people. But death is a sadness for us because we don't know when we will meet again. And so the resurrection removes sadness for us. The resurrection removes the fear of death. Why are there so many martyrs in the church? Why do we hear about martyrs? Why are there martyrs? I mean, why would somebody do that? Well, because my nation is important enough to fight for, right? Well, I mean, yeah, there's things that are bigger than us that are worth fighting for. But as Christians, it goes beyond that. There are things that are worth fighting for. There are things that are worth living for. There are things that are worth dying for. Because death is not the end. The resurrection shows us that death is not the end. And so, believing that Jesus is the resurrection and the life removes our fear of death. Believing that Jesus is the resurrection leads us to good works. It leads us to look around the world and say, that shirt, that t-shirt that says, the one who dies with the most toys wins? No, that's not enough for me. There's more to this life than this life. So the fact that Jesus rose from the dead and that he promises the resurrection for us means that I can go and do things. I can live justly, even though it cheats me out of a few happinesses in this world. I got to go help the poor. Yeah, I'd rather watch the Super Bowl. Or I'd rather watch every stinking football game that ever comes on TV. And they're just going to keep adding them and adding them and adding them because I'm paying them money to do that. And they're just going to keep giving people more and more money to put on helmets and crash into each other. And they're just going to keep making the system bigger and bigger and bigger. So that in kindergarten, we're going to start giving our kids steroids so that they can become great football players. Because 1 in a bazillion is going to become a football star. And all of our grade school little boys say, I'm going to be the best football player ever. Yeah, you're only 2'2" right now. We'll see. I don't know. Right? So, good works. And it also leads us away from evil, because Jesus doesn't just say that we will be raised. He says that some will be raised to life, and some will be raised to eternal shame. In other words, if I do evil, the resurrection for me isn't really going to be good news. It's going to be kind of bad news. It would be better if I just died, and that was it. Which is maybe why some people believe that, right? Maybe some people believe that that's it. Not because they have a scientific idea, or they have a real sense of something, but because they're afraid of what could be next. I would be
because I believe in all this stuff, right? So if you ever hear me saying, yeah, I don't believe in that stuff. I don't believe in such a thing as hell. It's probably because I need to go to confession. Now, again, I believe, and so I would follow that. I would follow that sort of meandering path if I followed that path, to try to convince myself. Would I somewhere in my heart know that I was fooling myself? Yeah, absolutely I would. And sometimes I do try to fool myself. But this is the thing about the resurrection of Lazarus, that it points to the resurrection of Jesus. And that's what the apostles pointed to at Easter time. The apostles pointed to the resurrection. They said, hey, listen, one man rose from the dead. And the Greeks said, that's crazy. That's crazy. Why is that crazy? Well, because nobody would want to take a body up once you get rid of it. Their philosophy was all about getting rid of the body. Getting rid of these lesser forms, these imperfect forms of life, and entering into the ideal, right? That was the Platonic idea, right? And the Jews found Jesus a stumbling block. Why? Why would God come down and take on flesh? There's more than that. And so there's this, that God is beyond us, right? So in any case, I'm now headed off on things that I didn't plan on talking about, and so that's where I should quit, right, before I get too far afield and somebody writes on the comments, heresy, or something like that, right? I try to avoid that. So thanks for listening. Have a good night, and God bless you. And maybe I'll see you next week.